Many people today think of culture in the way that it was thought of in Europe during the 18th and early 19th centuries. This concept of culture reflected inequalities within European societies and their colonies around the world. This understanding of culture equates culture with civilization and contrasts both with nature or non-civilization. According to this understanding of culture, some countries are more civilized than others, and some people are more cultured than others. Theorists like Matthew Arnold (1822–1888) believed that culture is simply that which is created by the best that has been thought and said in the world. Anything that doesn't fit into this category is labeled as chaos or anarchy. From this perspective, culture is closely tied to cultivation, which is the progressive refinement of human behavior. Phoenix is adamant that the new course will teach solid chemistry, but he thinks that an attraction for students will be a teaching approach that differs significantly from his days as an undergraduate. This takes real-life issues as the starting point of lectures and modules, such as how drugs are made or the science behind green issues. Out of this study, he says, students will be exposed to exactly the same core chemistry, unchanged over decades, but they will be doing it in a way that is more engaging and more likely to lead to more fundamental learning. A few summers ago I visited two dairy farms, Hull's Farm and Gardar Farm, which despite being located thousands of miles apart were still remarkably similar in their strengths and vulnerabilities. Both were by far the largest, most prosperous, most technologically advanced farms in their respective districts. In particular, each was centered around a magnificent state-of-the-art barn for sheltering and milking cows. Those structures, both neatly divided into opposite-facing rows of cow stalls, dwarfed all other barns in the district. Both farms let their cows graze outdoors in lush pastures during the summer, produced their own hay to harvest in the late summer for feeding the cows through the winter, and increased their production of summer fodder and winter hay by irrigating their fields. Sharks killed 4 people and injured 58 others around the world in 2006, a comparatively dull year for dangerous encounters between the two species. Shark bite numbers grew steadily over the last century as humans reproduced exponentially and spent more time at the seashore. But the numbers have been flat over the past 5 years as overfishing thinned the shark population near shore and swimmers have learned about the risks of wading into certain areas, Burgess said. Radicals in their time, early Impressionists broke the rules of academic painting. They began by giving colors, freely brushed, primacy over line, drawing inspiration from the work of painters such as Eugene Delacroix. They also took the act of painting out of the studio and into the world. Previously, not only still lives and portraits, but also landscapes had been painted indoors, but the Impressionists found that they could capture the momentary and transient effects of sunlight by painting air in plain air. Impressionism was an art movement of the 19th century, which began as a private association of Paris-based artists who exhibited publicly in 1874. It is characterized by a concern with depicting the visual impression of the moment, especially in terms of the shifting effect of light and color. The term Impressionism originated from art critic Louis Leroy, who commented Monet's painting, Impression, Soleil Levant. Leroy said that it indeed was just an impression and that the work could not be considered finished. The Impressionists adopted this term and decided to use it for their own benefit. Early Impressionist painters were radicals in their time, breaking many of the rules of picture-making that had been set by earlier generations. Up until the Impressionists, history had been the accepted source of subject matter for paintings. The rest of the universe appears to be made of a mysterious, invisible substance called dark matter 25% and a force that repels gravity known as dark energy 70%. Scientists have not yet observed dark matter directly. It doesn't interact with baryonic matter and it's completely invisible to light and other forms of electromagnetic radiation, making dark matter impossible to detect with current instruments. But scientists are confident it exists because of the gravitational effects it appears to have on galaxies and galaxy clusters. The most vital ingredient in Indian cooking, the basic element with which all dishes begin and, normally, the cheapest vegetable available, the pink onion is an essential item in the shopping basket of families of all classes. But in recent weeks, the onion has started to seem an unaffordable luxury for India's poor. Over the past few days, another sharp surge in prices has begun to unsettle the influential urban middle classes. The sudden spike in prices has been caused by large exports to neighboring countries and a shortage of supply. But the increase follows a trend of rising consumer prices across the board, from diesel fuel to cement, from milk to lentils.